It was raining in London. Not a heavy downpour, just the kind of rain that makes the streets shine and umbrellas bob like tiny islands. I was leaning against my traffic post, clipboard in hand, feeling the chill seep into my coat. Another ordinary day on duty, I thought. Then he appeared. A stranger, umbrella in one hand, backpack slung carelessly, and the brightest smile I had seen all week. He walked right into my lane, waving awkwardly as if he knew he was about to mess up my day. And maybe he was. Something about him felt different. Not dangerous, not suspicious. Just unusual enough to make me pause. That was the moment I realized that today, nothing ordinary was going to happen. Part 1, The Unexpected Encounter. I straightened my back and called out, "Excuse me, sir. Can I see your documents, please?" He froze. Then turned, his eyes wide, almost cartoonishly startled. "Ah, yes," he said, fumbling for his wallet. His accent was light, melodic, unmistakably Japanese. I studied him. Everything about him screamed tourist. From the way his jacket hung loose on his shoulders to the slightly oversized shoes, to the guidebook peeking out of his backpack. But it wasn't the clothes that caught my attention, it was the way he smiled at me. Like he was trying to apologize without words. "Documents, please," I repeated, keeping my tone firm but not harsh. He nodded, pulling out a small stack of papers, spreading them like a nervous artist laying out his sketches. I took them, checking each one carefully. Something felt off. Not wrong, just a little unusual. My curiosity was piqued. "So, are you visiting London for sightseeing?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. "Yes." His excitement spilled out in quick words, sometimes jumbling, sometimes repeating. "Big city, many things, cameras, buses, everywhere," he laughed nervously, tucking a strand of hair behind his ear. I noticed he didn't just talk with words. His hands moved constantly, painting invisible pictures in the air. It was charming. I had seen tourists before. I had seen nervous tourists. But I had never seen one who could turn a simple sentence into a performance. I checked the documents once more. Everything seemed in order. Still, a small part of me hesitated. Was it his nervous energy? Or something else, something I couldn't put my finger on yet? "All right," I said finally, handing the papers back. "Everything seems fine, but make sure you carry these at all times. London can be tricky." He bowed slightly, grinning. Thank you very much." His excitement was infectious. I found myself smiling too, despite the drizzle and the endless flow of traffic. "You're from Japan?" I asked, curious. "Yes," he said, almost proudly, "and I want to see everything." His eyes sparkled like he had just found a treasure map. "Everything?" I raised an eyebrow. "Yes. Big Ben, buses, fish and chips, and maybe, little secret things too," he added, his voice dropping conspiratorially. I chuckled. "Little secret things, huh? You might find more than you expect." He looked at me, puzzled, then shrugged with that same goofy enthusiasm. That shrug somehow melted the last bit of professionalism I had left. Suddenly, I was not just a traffic officer. I was a tour guide, an unwilling participant in this whirlwind of curiosity and charm. "You know," I said, "I could show you some places. If you want." He blinked. His mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. "Really? You show me?" "Yes," I said, feeling the odd thrill of impulsiveness. "Follow me, but you have to promise to stay close. London is big, and people get lost easily." "Ah. I promise. I promise." His enthusiasm was like a small fire. Bright, warm, slightly out of control. We walked. The rain slowed to a drizzle. The city smelled like wet stone and fried food. I pointed out the landmarks, tried to tell small stories, but every time I spoke, he interrupted with a laugh, a question, or a dramatic gesture. It was exhausting. And yet, I couldn't stop smiling. At a crosswalk, I noticed him staring at a double-decker bus with awe. In Japan, buses are small, very small, he said. This, huge. Amazing. I laughed. You'll get used to it. Or maybe you won't. Some things in London, they never feel normal. He nodded, totally serious. Yes. I like this. Strange, big, exciting. We paused under a small awning as the rain drizzled down. I felt a strange mix of responsibility and curiosity. He was just a tourist. A foreigner who probably had no idea how close he had come to getting lost, or worse, caught in some traffic accident. And yet, he had this energy. Something magnetic. I need to ask, I said cautiously, are you traveling alone? He tilted his head. Yes, alone, but not lonely. He laughed softly, almost embarrassed. I want to meet people. New friends. I studied him, the words echoing oddly in my mind. Alone but not lonely. That sounded like someone ready to explore, to connect, to step out of their comfort zone. You'll meet people, I said, feeling a small smile tug at my lips. But sometimes, the people you meet, they surprise you. He stared at me for a moment. His eyes seemed to search for meaning behind my words. Surprise, how? I shrugged, letting the hint hang in the damp air. You'll see. We continued walking, the city lights reflecting in puddles. I noticed small things about him, how he brushed raindrops from his hair without thinking, how he laughed at small signs written in English, how he kept glancing at me when he thought I wasn't looking. For the first time that day, I realized this encounter was no longer ordinary. Not for him. Not for me. By the time we reached a small cafe tucked in a side street, I felt a strange sense of anticipation. Something about this meeting, it felt like the start of a story I didn't know how it would end. He looked up at me, eyes wide and expectant. Thank you, for everything, he said softly. I nodded, smiling. Don't thank me yet. The day's just beginning. Inside the cafe, the warm air hit us, carrying the smell of coffee and pastries. I found a seat by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. He sat opposite me, still glowing with curiosity, still speaking in bursts of excitement. I realized then, this wasn't just a traffic stop. This was the beginning of something unpredictable. Something fun. Something that might just change the way I saw my ordinary days. And I couldn't wait to see where it would go next. Part 2, London Adventures and Small Surprises. The next morning, London was brighter. The rain had stopped, leaving the street sparkling, and the air smelled faintly of wet pavement and fresh pastries. I stood by my post, half expecting another ordinary day. Then I saw him, Haruto, waiting at the corner with that same wide smile, backpack slung low, hair still slightly damp from yesterday's drizzle. Good morning, he called out, waving frantically. His enthusiasm was like a small burst of sunlight in the gray city. I walked over, trying to keep my usual professional tone. Morning. Ready for your tour today? He nodded eagerly. Yes. Today, everything new. I smiled. There was something refreshing about his energy. It was infectious and slightly chaotic, like he carried his own personal storm of excitement. But I could feel it too, an unusual tension under his enthusiasm, as if he was afraid that any misstep might ruin his chance at adventure. Follow me, I said. We will start with some classic spots, then maybe a little secret place. He tilted his head. Secret place? Really? His eyes shone, curious and a little mischievous. Yes, I said, enjoying the small smile that appeared on my lips. But you have to promise to behave. He laughed softly, brushing off the warning. I promise. I try. We walked down the streets, and I pointed out landmarks, the grand architecture of Westminster, the imposing presence of Big Ben, and the bustle around Trafalgar Square. He asked 1,000 questions, sometimes repeating them in his rush to understand. Why so big? Why so many people? He asked, eyes wide at the crowd crossing the street. London is busy, I said, keeping my tone light. People move fast, and the city moves even faster. He nodded, looking both impressed and slightly overwhelmed. I noticed him glancing around frequently, absorbing everything, yet also occasionally glancing at me. There was something in his look, subtle but persistent, that made me feel both protective and curious. We stopped at a small street market. Haruto's eyes lit up as he watched the vendors arrange pastries, teas, and souvenirs. He moved from stall to stall, tasting small samples, laughing at the unusual flavors, and even attempting to haggle, which was both adorable and hopeless. Here, I said, pointing to a little tea shop tucked between larger stalls. This is where locals come, not tourists. He tilted his head. Locals, I want to try. He stepped inside with a confidence that surprised me, though he fumbled with the door, almost hitting the frame. I laughed quietly, shaking my head. He caught my smile and gave me a sheepish grin. Inside, the shop was warm and smelled of tea leaves and baked bread. Haruto wandered to the counter, reading the menu aloud slowly, sometimes mispronouncing words, sometimes guessing them wrong. Each mistake was met with his laugh, which was high-pitched and infectious. I watched him, sipping my coffee, and realized I was enjoying this more than I expected. Tourists annoyed me sometimes, but he wasn't just a tourist. He was vibrant, unpredictable, and entirely sincere. It was impossible not to smile around him. Try this, I said, handing him a small cup of tea. He sipped it carefully, then his face lit up. Oh. Very good, different, nice. I laughed. Glad you like it. London has its surprises. He nodded vigorously. Yes, surprises. Many, maybe, secret surprises. His eyes flickered toward mine, playful yet searching. We left the cafe and wandered further, heading toward a small park I liked to escape to when work got overwhelming. Haruto skipped slightly on the wet pavement, his energy uncontained, and almost bumped into a passerby. I caught his shoulder just in time. You have to be careful, I said, half laughing, half serious. I try, but London is big, my feet are small. He laughed, bending slightly as if to measure his tiny feet against the massive sidewalk. We sat on a bench in the park, watching ducks paddle in a small pond. He pulled out a small notebook from his backpack and began sketching. Not really sketching, more like doodling chaos with exaggerated expressions. But it was earnest, and I found myself watching him with curiosity. Why do you draw? I asked quietly. He looked up, a little embarrassed, cheeks faintly pink. To remember. To understand big things. I nodded, understanding more than I expected. There was something deep in him, beneath all the excitement and curiosity. A quiet desire to capture life before it passed. I felt a subtle tug in my chest. Here I was, a city cop, used to routine and rules, and yet I found myself drawn to this energetic, curious stranger. A part of me wanted to ask him more, about life, about Japan, about why he traveled alone, but I held back, sensing this was just the beginning. Then, unexpectedly, a small incident broke the calm. A street performer had dropped a small tray of coins near us, scattering them across the pavement. Haruto instinctively ran to help, gathering the coins and returning them to the performer with a bow. That, very kind, the performer said. Haruto shrugged. I like help, maybe help is fun. I smiled, a warm feeling spreading in my chest. Even in small gestures, he was genuine. Honest. Different from anyone I had met in a long time. But then, a shadow of tension appeared. Across the park, a man was watching him. Not threatening, but noticeable. Haruto noticed too, eyes narrowing. I felt a spike of unease, something I hadn't expected. "Are you okay?" I asked, keeping my voice low. He nodded, but I could see the quick glance he threw back at the man. "Yes, just, strange." I stayed close, subtly shielding him as we continued walking. It was a small reminder that while the city was exciting, it was also unpredictable. We ended the day near the river, watching the lights of the city reflect in the water. Haruto pulled a small snack from his backpack, offering it to me. Eat, very good. London snack." I took it, smiling. "Thank you. You think of everything, don't you?" He shrugged, laughing softly. Maybe not, just try to enjoy London." And I did. I enjoyed the chaos, the laughter, the small surprises, and yes, the way he looked at the world, and occasionally at me, with wide-eyed wonder. By the time we parted for the evening, the streets glowing under lamplight, I realized something unexpected. I was looking forward to tomorrow. To more chaos, more surprises, and more time with this strange, wonderful tourist who had turned my ordinary day upside down. I didn't know what would happen next. I only knew that whatever it would be fun, unpredictable, and maybe a little magical. And deep down, I felt a spark of anticipation, the kind that tells you life is about to change, just a little, for the better. Part 3, A Sudden Twist and Misunderstanding. It started with a missing smile. I arrived at the corner where we were supposed to meet. Usually, he would be waiting, backpack slung low, umbrella tilted at a jaunty angle. But today, he was gone. My first thought was that he was late. My second thought, which hit faster than I wanted, was something worse. The streets were busier than usual, people rushing past with umbrellas and shopping bags. I checked my phone. No message. I looked around again. The little warmth I had felt yesterday, the lightness of his energy, seemed to vanish from the city. Where did he go? I muttered to myself, a tension tightening in my chest. Then I saw it. A glimpse of a familiar blue backpack near a small alley, half hidden behind a vendor's cart. I started walking toward it, my curiosity now tinged with worry. When I reached the alley, I found him, crouched beside a small man who seemed lost and confused. Haruto's hands moved rapidly, gesturing, pointing at papers and a small map. He looked frustrated but determined. I stayed back, observing quietly. He did not see me yet. "Haruto?" I called softly. He jumped, spinning around, eyes wide. "Ah. Liam. You see me?" "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "What is happening here?" He hesitated, frowning slightly, clearly embarrassed. "This, friend, problem. I try help. But, maybe, mistake." I stepped closer, my chest tightening. I had felt a sudden rush of anger, worry, and confusion. He had left me, gone without telling me. And now he was tangled in some unexpected trouble. "Who is he?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Friend, lost, very lost. Help." His words tumbled out in a rush. Liam. I wanted. I cannot leave, alone." I exhaled, the tension in my chest softening. The drama wasn't about him abandoning me. It was about his kind heart, the same heart that made him so chaotic and delightful. And yet, I could not deny the feeling of being ignored, left in uncertainty, that small sting of miscommunication that made my stomach twist. "You didn't tell me," I said, my voice quieter now. "I was worried." Haruto looked down, nibbling his lower lip. I thought, you busy, duty, maybe angry. I cannot bother. I shook my head, a small laugh escaping despite the tight knot of emotion. I am your guide today, not a boss. You can bother me anytime. His eyes met mine, wide and grateful. Really? Really, I said, feeling warmth spreading in my chest again. But next time, tell me first. Okay. He nodded eagerly, a mix of relief and embarrassment on his face. That moment, small as it was, made my heart pound. I realized just how invested I had become in this whirlwind of a tourist. We spent the next hour helping his friend navigate the map, find directions, and sort out what had been a minor problem that looked far worse through Haruto's anxious eyes. I watched him, hands moving rapidly, voice animated, as if he could solve the world's problems in a single afternoon. It was endearing. It was frustrating. And it was undeniably captivating. Once his friend waved goodbye, Haruto slumped slightly on a bench nearby, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I sat beside him, feeling the quiet between us, comfortable but loaded with tension from the misunderstanding. You were worried, he said softly, not looking at me. I did not mean trouble. I know, I replied. But worry is part of care. And care, it matters. He tilted his head, a question in his wide eyes. Care, matter? Yes, I said simply. It does. For a few moments, we just sat, the city humming around us. People walked past, children laughed near a fountain, pigeons pecked at crumbs on the pavement. The world continued, indifferent to our small drama, but inside me, something had shifted. I realized that these small, chaotic, heart-wrenching moments, were the core of why I enjoyed his company. He brought unpredictability, a little spark, and yes, confusion. But also laughter, curiosity, and warmth that I hadn't expected. Then, as if sensing the mood, Haruto turned slightly, eyes catching mine. I want to see more. London, with you, he said softly. I felt a jolt. Not of surprise, but of realization. The spark I had felt yesterday, the pull of curiosity, was now something more tangible. Something I could not ignore. I want that too, I admitted, a smile breaking over my face despite the tension. We will see more. But today, slow. Rest a little. London is big. You cannot run too fast. He laughed, a gentle, relieved sound. Yes, slow, maybe slow, but, adventure, continue. Yes, I said, laughing softly myself. Adventure continues. We walked slowly back toward the main streets, letting the city guide us. He pointed at shop windows, commented on signs, and laughed at every small quirk he noticed. And I noticed him. Every gesture, every glance, every spark of excitement. By the time the sun began to dip behind the London skyline, painting the city in gold and soft purple, I realized that the twist of the day, the small drama, the misunderstanding, had changed something in both of us. We had navigated not only the streets of London but a small, delicate path of trust, patience, and understanding. And it felt like the first real step in something that neither of us could have predicted when the day began. Haruto paused, looking at the Thames glistening under the fading light. Liam, maybe. Happy today. Very happy. I looked at him, feeling warmth fill my chest, a mix of pride, affection, and anticipation. I am too, I said quietly. And as we walked back through the glowing streets, the city buzzing with life around us, I knew one thing with certainty: this was no longer just a tour. This was a story. A story of two people, two worlds, colliding in the middle of London, full of surprises, laughter, small dramas, and moments that mattered more than we could have imagined. Something unpredictable was blooming. And I could not wait to see what came next. Part 4, The Final Twist and a Joyful Goodbye. It was the last morning of his trip. The sky was pale blue, and the streets smelled faintly of rain and fresh bread. I was waiting at our usual corner, checking the time. My chest felt heavier than usual. Today, Haruto would leave London. I had known this since he arrived, but the reality of it pressed on me now, sharp and insistent. Then I saw him. Backpack on his shoulders, umbrella folded neatly at his side, smiling nervously. That smile, bright, hopeful, slightly trembling, made my stomach flip. "Good morning," he called softly, a little shy this time. "Morning," I replied, keeping my voice steady. I had to. My emotions were all over the place, but he did not need to know that. He stepped closer, eyes scanning the street, the city, and finally me. "Today. I go back Japan," he said slowly, as if choosing each word carefully. "Yes," I said, trying to sound casual. "But before you go, we have some time. We can enjoy it." He nodded, relief flickering across his features. "Yes, last adventure, today." We walked through London one final time, retracing some of our favorite spots, the market with the tea shop, the park with the pond, the small side streets we had discovered together. Everything seemed brighter today, and every corner held a memory of laughter, small chaos, and shared curiosity. As we paused on a bridge overlooking the Thames, he pulled out his camera, snapping photos of the skyline. He looked at me then, eyes serious for the first time in days. "Liam. Thank you. You show me. London, different, very different." I swallowed, feeling my chest tighten. "You made it different for me too," I said honestly. "You brought energy, chaos, and joy." He smiled, a little shy, and held up his camera. "I remember all moments." I laughed softly. "You will. And maybe, you will come back." He tilted his head, playful yet uncertain. "Maybe, yes, maybe soon. I hope." We walked quietly for a while, just enjoying the city. I could feel the tension building, that quiet weight of endings, of moments that could not last. And then, something caught my attention. A small envelope tucked into his backpack, one he had apparently forgotten to hand me. "Haruto, what is this?" I asked, holding it out. He blushed, glancing away. "Oh, just, small thing, nothing, you no need." I shook my head, curiosity winning. "I think I do." He sighed softly and handed it over. I opened it carefully. Inside was a small note and a plane ticket, not to Japan, but to London. My heart stopped. What is this?" He smiled, eyes sparkling, slightly nervous. "I see you again. Soon, maybe not Japan, come back London, yes." I could not stop the laugh that bubbled out of me, mixed with relief and joy. "You are impossible," I said, shaking my head, but smiling so hard it hurt. "You really are impossible." He laughed too, a soft, happy sound. "Yes, impossible, but true." We spent the rest of the day wandering, knowing the farewell was coming but choosing to ignore it. He tried foods he had missed, laughed at street performers, and even helped a small child chase a runaway balloon. I watched him, feeling both admiration and affection, realizing how much his presence had changed my ordinary routine. The final hour came too fast. We returned to the station where he had first arrived, and I could see the nervousness in his eyes. He adjusted his backpack, cleared his throat, and looked at me. "Liam, thank you, for everything. You show me, not just London, but more." His voice faltered, and he laughed softly. "I will miss you, very much." I stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I will miss you too. But this is not the end. Promise me you will come back soon." He nodded eagerly. "Promise, yes." Come back London, maybe before long. We hugged briefly, a simple gesture, but full of meaning. It was not about the goodbye, but about the connection we had built in these few days, the chaos, the laughter, the misunderstandings, and the small victories. As he walked toward the airport, I watched him, a sense of warmth and anticipation blooming in my chest. I knew this was only the first chapter. There would be more adventures, more surprises, and yes, more laughter. And as London stretched out around me, bright and buzzing with life, I realized something important. Sometimes, the most ordinary days can become extraordinary when the right person steps into your world. The final twist of the day was not about drama or misunderstanding. It was about the promise of future stories, of new adventures waiting to happen, of a connection that distance could not diminish. I turned back to my corner, smiling, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. London was the same city it had always been, yet everything had changed. I had met someone who brought color to my routine, laughter to my streets, and a spark that would stay with me long after he left. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, casting golden reflections on the river, I whispered to myself, a quiet promise, "See you again, Haruto. Soon."